Disclaimer: this video is for educational purposes only and does not constitute financial advice. Please consult a licensed financial advisor before making any retirement or pension decisions. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into something that affects millions of Americans but doesn't get nearly enough attention until it's too late. We're talking about pensions and how they've basically disappeared from the American workplace, replaced almost entirely by 401k plans. If you're wondering why your parents or grandparents seem to have had it easier in retirement, or why everyone keeps telling you to contribute to your 401k, this video is going to explain exactly what happened and what it means for your financial future. Let's start with a simple question. What exactly is a pension? A traditional pension, also called a defined benefit plan, is a retirement plan where your employer promises to pay you a specific amount of money every month after you retire. The amount you receive is usually based on factors like how long you worked for the company and what your salary was during your final years of employment. The key word here is promise. Your employer takes on all the responsibility for funding this retirement benefit. They invest money, manage the investments, and guarantee that you'll receive your monthly check no matter what happens in the stock market or the economy. Think about how powerful that is for a moment. You work for a company for 20 or 30 years, and when you retire, you know exactly how much money you'll receive every single month for the rest of your life. You don't have to worry about whether the stock market crashes the year you retire. You don't have to figure out investment strategies or worry about outliving your savings. The company handles everything, and you get predictable, reliable income in your golden years. For generations of American workers, this was the standard. This was the dream. Work hard, stay loyal to your company, and retire with dignity and financial security. Now let's talk about 401k plans. A 401k is what's called a defined contribution plan. Instead of your employer promising you a specific benefit in retirement, they allow you to contribute a portion of your paycheck into an investment account. Sometimes employers will match your contributions up to a certain percentage, which is basically free money and one of the few remaining benefits. But here's the critical difference. With a 401k, you are responsible for everything. You decide how much to contribute. You decide how to invest the money. You bear all the investment risk. And when you retire, there's no guaranteed monthly payment. You have whatever you manage to save and grow, and you have to figure out how to make it last for the rest of your life. The shift from pensions to 401k plans represents one of the most significant transfers of financial risk in American history. It moved the burden of retirement security from large institutions that could handle that risk to individual workers who often lack the expertise, time, or resources to manage it effectively. And this shift happened relatively quickly, over just a few decades, fundamentally changing the retirement landscape for an entire nation. So how did we get here? Why did pensions disappear? The story begins in 1978 when Congress passed the Revenue Act, which included a small provision called Section 401k. This section was originally intended as a tax break for executives, allowing them to defer compensation and reduce their tax burden. But a benefits consultant named Ted Benna realized this provision could be used to create a new type of retirement savings plan. In 1980, the IRS issued regulations that allowed employees to fund 401k accounts through payroll deductions, and the modern 401k was born. At first, 401k plans were supposed to supplement traditional pensions, not replace them. They were meant to be an additional savings vehicle, a way for workers to boost their retirement income beyond what their pension would provide. But companies quickly realized that 401k plans offered them significant advantages. Pensions are expensive and unpredictable for employers. They require companies to set aside large amounts of money, hire investment professionals, and guarantee benefits decades into the future. If the investments don't perform well, the company has to make up the difference. If employees live longer than expected, the company has to keep paying. Pensions also create long-term liabilities that appear on corporate balance sheets, making companies look less profitable to investors. 401k plans, by contrast, are much simpler and cheaper for employers. The company's obligation ends once they make their matching contribution, if they offer one at all. There's no long-term liability, no investment risk, and no guarantee to honor decades down the road. From a corporate perspective, it's a much cleaner arrangement. And during the 1980s and 1990s, as companies faced increasing pressure to maximize shareholder value and reduce costs, the appeal of shifting to 401k plans became irresistible. The transition accelerated during economic downturns and corporate restructurings. When companies faced financial difficulties, freezing or terminating pension plans became a common cost-cutting measure. Industries that once provided rock-solid pensions like manufacturing, steel, and automotive went through massive changes. Globalization and competition forced companies to shed legacy costs, and pensions were often first on the chopping block. Even profitable companies looked at their competitors switching to 401k plans and decided they needed to do the same to remain competitive. By the 2000s, the shift was nearly complete in the private sector. Today, only about 15% of private sector workers have access to a traditional pension plan, down from more than 60% in the early 1980s. The decline has been dramatic and continues to this day. Meanwhile, more than 70% of private sector workers have access to a 401k or similar defined contribution plan, though not all of them participate. It's worth noting that public sector workers, meaning government employees at the federal, state, and local levels, still largely have access to pension plans. Teachers, police officers, firefighters, and other government workers often retain traditional pensions as part of their compensation packages. But even in the public sector, there's been movement toward hybrid plans that combine elements of both pensions and 401k style accounts. And some jurisdictions have shifted new employees entirely to defined contribution plans. Now, let's talk about what this shift means for American workers. On the surface, 401k plans have some attractive features. They're portable, meaning you can take them with you when you change jobs, which is important in today's economy where people rarely stay with one employer for their entire career. They offer tax advantages, allowing you to reduce your taxable income now and defer taxes until retirement. And they give you control over your investments, which some people appreciate. But the reality for most workers has been much more challenging. First, there's the problem of participation. With a pension, you're automatically enrolled and building benefits as long as you're employed. With a 401k, you usually have to opt in, choose your contribution level, and select your investments. Studies have shown that many workers simply don't participate, either because they don't understand the importance, can't afford to contribute, or find the process too confusing. Even when employers offer matching contributions, which is essentially free money, millions of workers leave that money on the table by not contributing enough to get the full match. Second, there's the issue of contribution levels. To accumulate enough money to fund a comfortable retirement through a 401k, you typically need to contribute 10 to 15% of your income, or even more, for your entire working career. That's a huge ask, especially for younger workers dealing with student loans, high housing costs, and stagnant wages. Many financial experts recommend starting to save for retirement in your 20s, but that's exactly when many people are least able to do so. The result is that many workers reach their 50s and 60s with far less saved than they'll need. Third, there's investment risk. With a pension, professional fund managers handle the investments, spreading risk across thousands of beneficiaries and using sophisticated strategies to ensure the plan can meet its obligations. With a 401k, individual workers are suddenly expected to become investment experts. They have to choose between dozens of investment options, understand concepts like asset allocation and diversification, and somehow time their retirement to avoid market downturns. The reality is that most people lack the knowledge and experience to do this well. Studies have shown that the average 401k investor significantly underperforms the market due to poor investment choices, excessive fees, and panic selling during market downturns. Fourth, there's longevity risk, which is the risk of outliving your savings. A pension pays you a guaranteed amount every month for as long as you live, whether that's 5 years or 30 years. With a 401k, you have to figure out how much you can safely withdraw each year without running out of money. The common rule of thumb is the 4% rule, which suggests withdrawing 4% of your balance in the first year of retirement and adjusting for inflation thereafter. But this rule has limitations and may not work in all market conditions. Retirees face the terrifying possibility of running out of money in their 80s or 90s, exactly when they're most vulnerable and least able to return to work. Fifth, there are fees. Many 401k plans charge various fees for administration, record keeping, and investment management. These fees might seem small, maybe 1 or 2% per year, but they compound over decades and can consume a significant portion of your retirement savings. A worker who pays 2% annual fees instead of 0.5% could end up with 30 or 40% less money after 30 years of saving, simply because of fees. Let's look at some numbers to understand the impact. Imagine two workers who both retire at age 65. The first worker spent her career with a company that offered a traditional pension. Based on her years of service and final salary, she receives $3,000 per month for the rest of her life, with cost of living adjustments. That's $36,000 per year, guaranteed, no matter what happens to the economy. If she lives to 90, she'll receive this income for 25 years. The second worker had only a 401k. Let's say he was diligent and managed to accumulate $400,000 by retirement, which is actually above the median for retirees. Using the 4% rule, he can withdraw $16,000 in his first year. That's less than half what the pension recipient gets, and it's not guaranteed. If the market crashes early in his retirement, he might have to reduce his withdrawals. If he lives longer than expected, he might run out of money entirely. If he needs long-term care or faces unexpected medical expenses, his savings could disappear quickly. This example illustrates the fundamental problem with the shift from pensions to 401k plans. For most workers, 401k plans simply don't provide the same level of retirement security that pensions did. The burden of saving enough, investing wisely, and managing withdrawals in retirement is overwhelming for many people, and the consequences of failure are severe. The situation has created a retirement crisis in America. Studies show that nearly half of working-age households have no retirement savings at all. Among those who do have savings, the median balance for households approaching retirement is shockingly low, often under $100,000. This is nowhere near enough to maintain a comfortable standard of living throughout retirement. As a result, many Americans are working longer, delaying retirement into their late 60s or even 70s. Others are retiring with insufficient resources and facing difficult choices about where to live, what they can afford, and whether to burden their children. So what happened in 2025 and 2026 specifically? Why are we talking about this now? Several trends have converged to make the pension crisis even more urgent. First, the oldest baby boomers have been retiring for several years now, and the wave of retirements is accelerating. This massive generation is discovering that their 401k balances aren't sufficient, and they're facing tough financial realities. Second, the last remaining private sector companies offering traditional pensions have continued to freeze or terminate their plans. Major corporations that were once bastions of pension security have shifted their youngest workers to 401k plans only, making pensions truly a thing of the past for new entrants to the workforce. Third, market volatility has reminded everyone of the risks inherent in 401k plans. While the stock market has generally trended upward over long periods, there have been significant drops and corrections that have devastated the retirement savings of workers who happen to retire at the wrong time. Fourth, There's been growing public awareness and discussion about the retirement crisis, with more media coverage, political debate, and grassroots advocacy around the need for retirement security reform. Some policy experts and advocates have called for bringing back pensions or creating new guaranteed retirement systems. There have been proposals for state run retirement plans, expansions of Social Security, and requirements that employers offer retirement benefits. Some states have launched auto enrollment IRA programs for workers whose employers don't offer retirement plans. There's discussion about creating portable pension systems that would follow workers across jobs, combining the security of pensions with the flexibility needed in today's economy. But progress has been slow, and political will has been limited. Businesses generally oppose mandates that would increase their costs, and there's disagreement about whether the government should play a larger role in retirement security. Meanwhile, millions of workers continue to navigate the 401k system as best they can, hoping they're saving enough and investing wisely, but often uncertain about whether they're on track. So, what can you do if you're relying on a 401k for retirement? First, participate in your employer's plan if one is offered, and contribute at least enough to get any employer match. That match is immediate, guaranteed return on your investment. Second, increase your contribution rate over time. Even small increases, like 1% per year, can make a significant difference over decades. Third, start as early as possible. Time is your greatest asset when it comes to retirement saving, thanks to compound growth. Fourth, educate yourself about investing basics. You don't need to become an expert, but understanding concepts like diversification, asset allocation, and keeping fees low will help you make better decisions. Fifth, consider working with a financial advisor, especially as you get closer to retirement. A good advisor can help you create a comprehensive retirement plan, optimize your investment strategy, and plan for the withdrawal phase. Sixth, don't forget about Social Security. For many retirees, Social Security provides the foundation of retirement income, functioning somewhat like a basic pension. Understanding how Social Security works and making smart claiming decisions can significantly impact your retirement security. Seventh, consider other sources of retirement income, such as rental property, part-time work in retirement, or annuities that can provide guaranteed income streams similar to a pension. The death of pensions and the rise of 401k plans represents a fundamental shift in how Americans prepare for retirement. It's placed enormous responsibility on individual workers, many of whom are not equipped to handle it, and it's created widespread retirement insecurity. While 401k plans work well for some people, particularly higher earners who can afford to save substantial amounts and who have the knowledge to invest effectively, they've proven inadequate for millions of others. The question now is whether America will address this retirement crisis with meaningful reforms, or whether we'll continue with a system that leaves too many people facing financial hardship in their later years. Understanding this history and these challenges is the first step toward making better personal decisions and advocating for better policy solutions. Your retirement security is too important to leave to chance. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.